everyone, and welcome to this week's Invisible Not Broken. And I finally got my friend back. I'm so excited. So you might have seen I reposted her interview. It was the first interview ever on Invisible Not Broken. So serious history here. I have Dawn back, and she has gone through one hell of a year or so of doing. Oh gosh, my words are so bad. This is what happens when I take major painkillers.
Investigational study. So it's not a clinical study, it's investigational. It's in a world between clinical and commercialization. So it's the redheaded stepchild to clinical trials.
I love how that's phrased. Like, we all have
against redheaded stepchild.
No, and my son would be one of those. Yes, so we are not messing with the gingers here,
right.
But we both have really rare diseases. Yours is even more rare, and
yeah. So approximately 12,000 people in the U.S. I think that's what they're citing.
And I will never try to pronounce this because I've tried before, and it's I can't.
Pretty wackadoo. Hereditary amyloidosis, and it's a protein that builds up one mutant protein from the liver that causes complete mayhem all throughout the body. And for me, special me, in the brain.
Yay, you.
Yay, me.
It's just so crazy when you just think about, like, totally going off topic, but, like, one weird twist of a DNA structure and everything can go to hell. Like, it's never, like, there's one twist of the DNA structure and we get wings, or, like, a twist of
really
DNA
long eyelashes. That would love that.
You know, I like that we went from, like, wings to, like, drag queen eyelashes. That is everything I needed today. Thank you. Poor L'Oreal, they'd be like out of business if we could like figure that out. Yes.
Pretty rad Marvel character.
So when you have the protein buildup in the brain, what would that end up looking like?
It manifests itself like Alzheimer's.
That's a very good, clear description. So the mental breakdown to the physical breakdown.
Yeah, it's physical and mental breakdown. It builds up over time, and the studies of the past have said 5 to 7 year from initial diagnosis to eventual death.
There's just nothing snarky to say after that. That's just yeah.
It's and that's within the last 20, 30 years of research. So they've definitely got some redefining to do with the new treatments out. So 5 to 7 years is no longer current, but diagnosing it is without a family history is really tough because it looks like fibromyalgia, it looks like diabetes, it looks like you might have an athlete's heart because it can go into the heart. It goes in all these different ways that if you don't have a clinician who looks for the zebra and the hoofbeats, it misses it entirely.
So I remember you telling me about the test, but I'm on so many painkillers right now. I cannot remember details.
You're very happy, which is nice.
Well, the painkillers do make me happy. Yeah, it does, when I'm not screaming and crying in front of people, the happy does sort of like, wow, that's lovely that's not what's happening at the moment. I forgot what the test was like, but I remember you telling me like how even the test is not an absolute.
Right. Diagnosing it, it can look like carpal tunnel in the beginning because it starts as neuropathy, which is, the burning and tingling in the hands. So right now, still, the gold standard is a tissue biopsy. And they take a little tissue from your stomach and they stain it a particular way and then put it on the certain light so it luminesces and it shows the colors, Congo red stain. So getting that biopsy and staining it correctly also takes a very skilled pathologist who understands a little, not a lot, because you can overstain it and get false positives, which happened to my cousin's daughter at 18. So it in all ways, it takes clinicians and technicians who understand this disease and its needs. And then you have clinicians who are like, oh, we can do it in-house, and they can't. So it is all around. It's a very tough disease to understand. It's multi-system. You have many specialists, and you don't have often, if you don't have a good caregiver and advocate, you don't have a central person who is directing traffic per se and making sure all the communication lines are open.
So how did you hear about the test am I saying that right with the test, or is it treatment or?
Well, the test that diagnosed me was a fat aspirate test because they take fat out of the stomach.
I'm just trying to think, because my political, we're here in the United States, so I'm wondering, like, how you even get your insurance to cover tests like that.
Yeah, you have to. I felt like with my general practitioner, because I was my mother's caregiver and I watched it with my grandmother and my uncle and then as my mother, I prepared my general practitioner. At the time I was with an HMO here in the West Coast, well-known, Kaiser Permanente, which is great for primary care, not so much for rare diseases.
Or pain management.
Right. So I had alerted my general practitioner that this was of my family history. This is what I would need. And I aligned it much like getting diagnosed, and I hope I pronounced it, the BRCA gene with breast cancer, that if you are genotyped, then you are monitored more closely through mammograms and blood tests. And so that's essentially how I positioned it with my general practitioner, that I have this family history. I've also built a case history with a doctor that was a good friend, and presented it to her. At 40, this may present itself, and these are the steps I'm going to need. And so at 40, I would like to have fat aspirate tests. And so she was very understanding, and she set that up for me. But I had to have a face-to-face and lie it out. Like, this is what's coming my way. And unfortunately, in 2003, I had the genotype. Had I been forward-thinking, I would have gotten my life insurance
yeah. So yes, because if you have any sort of like even fibromyalgia actually knocked me out of getting life insurance. Not for everyone. We are not giving life insurance or insurance. Please go speak to a professional. I am not don't sue me. But I was actually knocked out because of I was also knocked out of getting health insurance before the ACA because of fibromyalgia as well.
Right.
Yeah. So anything will
covers
just
for health insurance, but not life insurance.
Yeah.
So my cousin, I have a younger cousin who's now 38, and she got it all lined up. She's got life cover where she pays $500 a month into a pre-tax account that she can use for caregiving later on. So she was super smart. So this younger generation is a lot more savvy. I was not. I was just, my mom was dying. I knew I wanted to know because I wanted to feel prepared. You know, that I'm like, I'm going to be prepared. Ha ha ha.
Yeah. That's very true. But
it just felt like a step forward.
Also, I mean, you're talking about being the caregiver for your mom who is dying of something. And at that time, there was nothing on the horizon of what could even hopefully stop this.
No, there was no treatment. There was organ transplant, which I always found barbaric because then you're on a host. And believe me, organ transplant still saves lives. So I'm not bashing organ transplant. But you have to be sick, but you have to be not too sick.
Yeah.
And so that being on a transplant wait list is a tightrope walk. And for one mutant protein to throw out a perfectly good liver seemed like it wasn't a good logical step for me.
Yeah, and just podcast housekeeping. Anyone, we have not had an organ transplant on this podcast. So please, if you would like to come on, that is definitely something we would love to chat about. I know that's a tremendous level of upkeep and an amazing amount of stuff you have to do during the time you're waiting. So please, send us a message. Would love to talk to you. So how did you hear about this thing in the horizon? Yeah.
So I had been following. So PubMed became my friend here in the United States, where if you have any scientific publications that get submitted, also go through the universities for research, PubMed. And so I just started watching what was being published and reading as much as I could and understanding as much as I could. And again, because I partnered with my mom's former doctor, he was very helpful in kind of midwifing me into this world and knowledge of the disease and its intricacies. So I just started paying attention to what was out there and support groups. That was super helpful. I was never a joiner. I don't know what it is. I always find myself sitting in the room feeling very snarky to, questions like, oh my God, what a stupid question.
Yeah, can anyone guess why we're friends? Like, met at dog park, and I'm like, oh, will you be my friend?
You get sarcasm.
Snark. My person, this is how we unhealthily deal with our feelings. Snark.
Right. So, but the support groups you hurt yourself.
If anyone wonders why I laugh in the middle of podcasts at weird intervals or where it doesn't seem like I should be laughing, it's usually because I've just dislocated something. It's my way of not screaming. So there is your explanation, everyone.
Laugh at pain.
Yes, this is not today. Thank you,
today.
Game of Thrones.
Definitely. So what I found from the support groups is I found the study partners that were the A students that were going to push knowledge forward and be that ear or be that other person on the ground that's talked to that specialist or is just as pushy. So that was instrumental. And then right time, right place. And being able to put myself in front of a crowd and speak. That was also, I had the opportunity to speak in front of the FDA back in 2015, where a wonderful woman, Isabel Lusada, who runs the Amyloidosis Research Consortium, brought together the FDA, researchers, pharmaceutical companies, and really brought attention to that this disease needs collaboration because we'd had a very important drug denied by the FDA. And I did not know this, but the FDA had very little understanding of rare disease and this rare disease and the needs of creating clinical trials that served our population. So that was helpful of me getting in front of specialists and networking. So networking got me to where I think I am today, that got me treatment and literally flying across country to see specialists.
I mean, I just love that you're like, networking got me to where I am today. And that was like what I would say when I was a photographer and I was running a big business is networking got me here. And you're like, networking got me to a place where I could save my own life.
Right.
Like, that is amazing to me, the level and energy and resources and time you had to put into saving your own life.
And it was literally a full-time job where I would be on the phone and I would think that thankfully I had a house over my head. I had good insurance. I had internet connection. That I could sit and treat my house like an office.
I love that you know exactly where I'm going to go with this, with my political leanings going, we are privileged. Right. We live in a wonderful area with good internet connectivity. Most of the time, it's certainly not as good as I would like it. Right. But, and then again, we do not have to worry about putting food on our table. Right. We both have very wonderful husbands who make an income, and we don't have to live off of disability alone. Right. Like, we are in an incredibly privileged situation where if you had this disorder and you were a waitress or a office worker or anyone who does not have full medical health benefits, and right. even if you did and you're working 40 hours a week, you wouldn't have the time to make these phone calls, fly everywhere, right. go to these specialists across the country. Like, right. This is insane, the level of privilege you would have to be able to follow this model. We are not blind to how impossible this would be for a lot of people. We're just saying this is how crazy it is to...
My start line was a lot further out.
Yeah, which, I mean, that's the whole point of this podcast, is some people's start lines are at different places, and we all need to give a tremendous level of understanding to everyone's start line.
Right. There are 120 mutations of this disease, and one is from the Caribbean, so it's African American, and so everyone in that community has heart implications, some neuropathy, but the cardiomyopathy. And so just now, we've been talking about this serious medication since the 90s. Just now, the African American community is getting acknowledgement and focus on their needs, and they're the largest population in the United States with this disease. So it's just like every time I do this podcast, I feel like I just need to like face palm into unconsciousness with like how unfair all of it is. Like right. how much people could really benefit from a baseline of compassion from government, economy, and healthcare. Like right. baseline compassion even would just do so much. But I will rant another day. Yeah, we're going to put a pin in that.
We're going to put a pin on that for right now because we have so much to cover with. Like, so you've heard about this through networking, this study that you were a part of. How did you get in? Because I remember sitting in your car listening to the phone calls you were on, and it was probably like your 6th phone call of the day.
Oh, I seek them out like a debt collector.
Oh my God, yes. I always go with Pitbull, but I have my new words. Dice like a debt collector.
Like a debt collector or bounty hunter.
Well done. Like a student loan officer.
Exactly. I will track you down and you will talk to me. I will call you till you pick up that phone.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yes. So being persistent, I got the golden letter from my specialist out in Boston who said he would recommend it. And this particular specialist is the doctor who is publishing the most about this disease, who has his hands on a lot of research and treatment options. So I could then take that letter to universities that were sponsoring the study. So what it is, the FDA approved, and take a step back, for rare disease, the FDA recognized that there is an unmet need with the community, that while the treatment is going through clinical review is done and they're going under commercial review, there is still treatment needed. So they're calling this expanded access. So it's a new program that allows treatment to be sponsored by the company, the pharmaceutical company, and you get the drug for free. And they treat you like a study participant. You have protocols. But it's really just collecting safety data. And if you think it from a marketing perspective, you've got a guaranteed population that when they flip the switch for commercialization, they're ready to go. So you can tell your investors, we've got, so many people lined up. So I know.
Well, we might not agree with pure capitalism or healthcare for profit. We do understand that's the only way we're going to save our own lives. So
right?
We'll play the game, sure.
I'll play the game. But I can't sit there and be ultra like, oh, they really want to help us. No. They've got to tell their investors they've got a population lined up to flip the switch and go to green, be in the black.
Yeah, so if all of you want to do a quick little, but with capitalism healthcare, we have major changes and innovation if there's money to be made. Okay, bullshit.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times what happens is diseases like we have, which are very rare, and there's not the money behind it. Mm-mm. So a lot of the times, unless they have something that they can, get an erection from or clear up the skin or grow hair from, it's going to end up being shelved because they won't make money from this. And even if they find a cure for a lot of what we're talking about, unless it's a big disorder like MS or cancer or something that there's a huge swath of the population that has
they can benefit financially from,
they will shelve a lot of the stuff that can actually help us because it will not make the money for the companies. So I really want to put an end to this myth of financial-based healthcare will actually save us all. It might save some of you, and only if you have money and insurance. It will not save all of you. Like the new research that just came out that cancer patients are living longer in a certain demographic. Which just makes you want to throw up. Right. You should not have to prove your worth economically to live.
Right.
So I just wanted to throw that little. Yeah. I couldn't resist. There was a soapbox. I was going to even if I can't stand or walk, I will jump on that soapbox.
Right. Right.
It's just not possible not to.
To be fair to the company, they have spent billions of dollars in research. So they also have to. There is that regaining and my treatment. I go in for an infusion every 3 weeks. And this sounds so terrible, but I envy cancer patients in that they you have 29 treatments. We're going to give you, mine are infinite. Yeah. Until they come up with a new way to deliver this medication. And so the new way is a shot every 3 months. That's what I want to be on. But I have to be on this to prove to my insurance company that this is the way I stay healthy.
May we just have a quick little moment for the expensive shit we have to do, expensive and painful shit we have to do to prove to our insurance companies or to our pain clinics that we've been a good patient and have tried everything else. Yeah, sorry, that was just a
moment.
I just went to the pain clinic yesterday, so
it was feeling extra special from them. So the billions of dollars of research and the money that they've put in to make this viable and what's down the road and what's going to be bigger and better. So back to where I was. So the expanded access program. So originally back in August of 2017, they were going to allow 50 people worldwide to be on this program. And so each university got a certain number of slots. And I did not know this, but each university has their own internal regulatory bureau, which they approve studies. Now, some universities have got it together and they have a central IRB and they can very quickly. Others take a long time. I don't want to bite the hand that feeds me. But
no, we love
biting the hand.
No, I love biting the hand that feeds me. I'm not going to die from what I have. It's just, it will just kill my life. Happiness. It will kill my quality of life. Right. It's not going to kill me. You absolutely do not gnaw on the hand that feeds you.
Yeah, yeah. So some universities are more what's that word? Not more agile, but they can quickly bring a study up and running.
No, please ask the girl on opioids.
Yeah, right.
Word that you can't remember.
Did you mean my thesaurus opioid girl?
Never mind. I have my degree in English.
Right.
I know words.
I have words. They're just
me and 45. We're doing great with our spelling and words. Oh, sorry, had to.
Yeah, had to. So this expanded access program had 50 spots worldwide, and I was waiting. There was
for how many people? Like, how many people have what you have that are
in the U.S.?
Yeah, just in the U.S.
Like I said, it's approximated 10 to 12,000, and within the support group, I would say there's a good 1,000 of us.
So 50 people per university.
No, worldwide.
Okay. Wow, so much worse than I was going with. So just to get like a basic idea, this isn't Ehlers-Danlos. This is something that after you get a diagnosis, you're looking at 5 to 7 years. Mm-hmm. And the only hope that's on the market at all. And there's 50 spots for the entire world.
Right, so it felt like the Great American Race. So I was waiting for a university west of the Mississippi to come up, and I was looking at Johns Hopkins, I was looking at Columbia, I was calling all these places and be like, how am I going to flying across the United States every 3 weeks to get this medication? Meanwhile, my husband's like, just get in.
Yeah. But I wanted to take, because that's super important, but I want to take a quick step back, because I remember you telling me stories of like, there are people in your support group who would still see their forms on their doctor's desk.
Oh, so yes.
I want some like serious help for people who are in your position or in like I've heard of this treatment. How the hell do I get into it? When you've heard the treatment, what do you do?
You're
like
on your doctor
steps.
like a debt collector.
There we go.
And you cannot, I feel like I trust no one to do their job efficiently.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, because you're in a weird position, though, because someone has your life in your hands. And if you aren't likable, which every woman in the entire world just stood up and did a standing ovation, because likability is literally the way you save your life here.
I can't be shrill. I can't be angry.
Nope. You can't be demanding or naggy.
Or too knowledgeable.
Oh, God forbid you know too much in a doctor's office. Sorry, I've been called out on this on the female-male standpoint. This is just from living as a female for this entire time, and this is just what I know from being a woman, how I'm treated and how the media treats people with breasts. So we're going to go with that. People who visibly look female and the likability factor. If you want to get on my case, I will kindly refer you back to 2016. So yeah, for anyone, you cannot be too knowledgeable. You cannot be shrill. You cannot be, there's so many things you cannot be. You have to be super likable.
So you walk this tightrope of being your own advocate, but also acknowledging that, yes, this doctor went to medical school. This person knows. And I've said that before. I've said that to specialists. I am not a medical professional, but I'm an expert in this disease. So I wish to dialogue with you. And that seems to be... That's
a good way to phrase that. Thank you. Yeah. So everyone underline that one. I did not go to medical school, but I've lived this disease for this many decades, and I would like to have a dialogue with you. That is the perfect non-threatening, but not complete underbelly.
Right. I'm not giving up, but I'm letting you know I demand your respect.
Wow, you are brilliant at this.
Sometimes I feel like I come up with some bon mots and then I forget. What did I say? That was really good. I have to write
well, we
this
now
down.
have it recorded.
So, yeah. So it's a tightrope that you walk with your specialist to make sure that you acknowledge it. And it's, my brother and sister-in-law are both medical professionals, and watching them go through medical school and residency, it's brutal. It is. They beat them down to hopefully build them up, and they're overworked. So. I have a lot of sympathy for the. Let me rephrase this. I empathize with the doctor who has spent years and then has a patient walked in and demeans. It's demeaning. That's not. You don't get anywhere with leading with anger.
Which is hard sometimes,
It's so
especially
hard
when we're
'cause
in
you have every
agony
right to be angry.
and you've already dealt with how many specialists before you walked
Usually
into this
6.
specialist
With this
room?
disease, you've normally seen 6 specialists
Yeah.
before you get correctly diagnosed.
So the basic rules for life is start each new interaction with the assumption of humanity. Just start each interaction fresh and with the assumption of this is another person and they believe I am a person and we will treat each other with mutual respect every single time. Super good practice in life.
Which is sometimes hard when you get to someone who doesn't work on that platform.
Yeah, it's super fun.
So 50 spots worldwide. So I felt like I was on this time clock of like, are these spots going to dry up before I even get the chance to get on this medication? So finally at Baylor University in Dallas, Texas came up and I'm like, okay, that's close enough that it's a 3-hour flight from the Bay Area here in California that I could fly. I could get Southwest as a major hub there. That wouldn't be terrible. And I didn't even think of like, if I get in, where am I going to stay? I'm like, I had to put that out of my mind. I had to be like, I'll address that.
One step at a time.
One step at a time. I get into the program because my aunt who lived in Dallas, Texas, she's like, where are you going to stay? You should need to start a GoFundMe. I'm like,
Don't we just love how in the United States GoFundMe has become our new health insurance?
That's so
love it.
shitty. It is so shitty. And not like that, my husband makes a good salary. I felt like a sense of pride. Like, how do I even go to people I don't know and beg for money? We are not.
Okay, but we also live in one of the most expensive places
That's true.
in the United States. So when people are like, oh, well, your husband makes close to 6 figures, you must be like rolling. No, I promise you, here in the Bay Area.
What did they say? $90,000 you're considered.
Well, if you go down to where I used to live, that was actually the poverty line. Was $90,000. Like you can't rent a room out here for like less than $800. Like,
Right.
And then when you look at like the loss of time, we'll leave.
We'll pin that.
Yeah, we'll pin that. But when you're talking, that was one thing that I don't think people understand is that even if you get into one of these, you're probably going to have to go somewhere else. So your airfare, your hotel,
And what's for clinical trials? When you're on a clinical trial, all that is covered. So with this investigational trial or this expanded access, they sponsor only the drug. And then it's up to I've also found this out the hard way. It's up to the university to negotiate the contract if you pay for pre-meds and infusion costs. Because with this, there's this.
Holy, I didn't even think of that. What? Okay, give us what does the infusion cost? Like, what's the infusion cost? Like,
and again, facility costs are different. Hospital, based on no logic, from what I can get.
And good luck getting an answer, by the way, on what any of these breakdown costs will be before you get your bill.
Sit on the bed or sit in an infusion chair in $1,400.
Yeah, to sit. No, please understand that she's not saying the needle, any of the hardware. She is saying to sit on the chair in the infusion clinic would be $1,400. I just want you to sink this in because this is something that she had to do how many times?
I do it every 3 weeks, so it's 17 times during a year.
So. Basic multiplication, people, because I didn't go to school for math. Thank you, Katya. You're looking at a significant amount of money that is not covered by insurance.
And so, and hopefully, our program, we have a PPO and it's 90/10, so I have to meet the deductible and then it's covered.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So fortunate in that respect.
I'm a little jealous of your insurance right now.
Right, but that you still have to pay that, and so even 10% of that bill could be $700. Until you meet your deductible and then you're 100% covered. So sitting on the bed is $1,400. Then it's the cost of infusion, which is another $800. Then it's the Tylenol that costs $48. Then it's the IV Benadryl that costs $148. And then it's the IV steroid. Because every infusion, what I've seen is that the standard pre-med is steroids and Benadryl.
Yeah, that would absolutely make sense.
For inflammation and histamine reaction. So that it was a cost in itself. And then they don't cover, and again, based on how the university negotiated contract, they may or may not cover your meal. So even when you go to sit in that chair for up to 4 hours, which I do, I pack my own lunch. Where I go,
We didn't hear that.
We didn't hear that.
No.
Where I go, it's not. I pack my own lunch.
I will say I know where you go, and the food is excellent there, but very expensive. I've certainly been there many times.
Right. So I went into Baylor not understanding what I was walking into, just knowing I got to get treatment. So they approved me, and within a week, access became available on the West Coast at Oregon Health Science University in Portland. So I'm like, okay, Portland, I can fly there, and it was a gift in that I have a maternal aunt and uncle. I could stay with them, and they picked me up. They drove me there. Rarely did I have to take a Lyft or an Uber to and from the airport to get there. I had a safe place to stay afterward if I wasn't feeling well. I didn't have to sit in a lonely hotel room. So, and I got...
you're bringing up a lot of things that I'm really happy you bring up, because those aren't the things you think about. You think, oh, you're just really happy you get this that might save your life. But there's a lot of emotions when you're dealing with these things. There's a lot of hope. There's a lot of fear, and that you don't have your support network with you when you're traveling for this.
Right. And my first infusion went really well. My second infusion, my blood pressure dropped to 70/40. And so, bouncing back on what I found with every infusion, how well your infusion goes is almost, it predicts how well your body's then going to react, which makes sense. That your body doesn't have to bounce back from dehydration, from a state of emergency, that you get to motor along. So I spent the first 2 months with this. I felt like I was playing the hokey pokey. Well, what if and the clinic doctor basically told me when my blood pressure dropped, I think you should salt up the night before and bring your blood pressure up. But he wasn't looking at, and he wouldn't know, but I was also on a drug that's a beta blocker that reduces my blood pressure for chronic migraines. I had to suss out myself, if I stop taking this drug 3 days before, which is a washout, I can go in and and with a little bit of caffeine and making sure I have lots of water, I can get my blood pressure high enough to where if I drop what I've seen, 30 points, I'm not at a deficit. So if I go in with like 130 or 140 over 80, I drop 30 points. I'm still at a good place. I'm not, 100 over 60, or not 100, sorry. Yeah, like 160, which is low for me. And even though professionals say, oh, that's not bad. You live in this body with all this medication and have low blood pressure and the dizziness and the nausea that comes with your body being inundated with medication.
So you're talking about brand new medication. There's no way for them to know how it's going to react with any of your other medications you're on.
Right, because when the clinical trials, you had to come off of everything. It was very regulated. So they would say, oh, what are you on? And I'd be like, this, and this. Does it react? And they'd be like,
It's like when you're pregnant and you're like, these are the medications I take. Will this be a problem? Don't know. No one's tested this on pregnancy.
Right. So I had to go through a lot of my own trial and error of what worked for me, what got me a good result, what got me out the door and didn't feel like I was a baby giraffe walking out of the infusion room,
You're coming up with the best metaphors today. I am living for your metaphors.
But I just
and if there's not a more English literature major statement, I don't know what is between drag queen and lit major, but living for your metaphors, totally, yes.
Thank you. So this expanded access, because it's investigational, they're only watching me for safety. Like, do I have adverse events? And if you have an adverse event during your infusion, you could get branded with an infusion-related reaction. And that IRR then can hinge upon your ability to stay in the program.
What was that called? Infusion-related
reaction, an IRR.
Yes, wow. So that could get you kicked out.
Based on the judgment of the clinic doctor. Fortunately, the clinic doctor that I had was very understanding. He a gentle, kind person who didn't have to hang his hat on this as a way to show his prowess in the medical world. He wanted to bring people in. Obviously, it speaks to his practice, but there are definitely specialists out there who feel that this is this extension of their.
I like what we're not saying here. Yes, extension of their ego. Yes, thank you. We'll use ego. Ego's good.
So he and the study coordinator. She was an amazing woman, so organized, and so we together really found out what
I mean, you aren't just doing leaps of faith. You're doing Mario Brothers leaps. Like it's just one leap after another after another.
And the clinic nurse there at the Infusion Center had the 25 years of chemo experience and had been a breast cancer survivor herself. So, and kindness. I remember one day her looking at me like, what if we just slow your rate down? I know this is the protocol. They want you at these levels, but I really think you would tolerate the medicine better.
God, having anyone who's gone through something, the empathy you can get is just...
Right, but then I didn't even know what to do next. She didn't say to me, oh, you need to have a doctor's order. I didn't know that was the magic sentence that opened the golden door for me to change my protocol. And again, this hospital was very...
Because some people aren't going to want to even, like, take that dice roll of change protocol because you could be the difficult patient.
You're the one, you have an infusion-related reaction. I'm sorry, you can't tolerate this medicine.
Yeah.
So my cousin across the United States was white-knuckling every infusion because she, like myself, had reactions to the speed of the delivery and had really nausea and dizziness and all these things that, like having a flu. And she'd have to get on a train for 6 hours and pray that she didn't have diarrhea.
Okay, so once again, because we did this the first time, here is our big ask for the Silicon Valley. Airbnb. Having the billions of dollars you seem to have in revenues, maybe you subsidize people to be able to stay over for medical things. Ronald McDonald House cannot hold everyone who's there for their sick relatives, and there's those of us who are sick who need to be closer to our hospitals. You guys could totally subsidize this, since the government doesn't seem to be interested in helping anyone. Corporations are people, so hey, let's be nice people. And Uber and Lyft. Dear God, Uber, you need a huge PR boost. So maybe you guys could start subsidizing rides to chemo, to trials. Lyft, you seem fairly nice. Go ahead and try that out. Like, these are all things that these multi-billion-dollar companies that don't pay taxes could actually do to pay back the people who are subsidizing their taxes.
So again, it all kind of depends on the university, not only their culture, but their protocols, their viewpoints. So, again, you're in this investigational trial. You're not tied to a clinical review, but you don't have commercial access. So every time I said, you know what would be great if I could get less steroids, 10 milligrams, while you think is nothing. I'm a raging monster.
10 milligrams is nothing for steroids. That's
right.
That's like hulking out. Like
I was a total hulk, and then I couldn't sleep for days. And so I remember asking, could you at least reduce it to 7.5? Okay, now can you reduce it to 5? And I didn't even have the knowledge to ask that until I was at my yearly evaluation with my specialist out on the East Coast. And he said to me, that's a lot for your stature.
Okay, so Queen of Phrasing, how do you ask for a change of protocol? I love putting you on the spot. It's so cute.
So what I have found is instead of saying, I would like, and I had my brother-in-law say this, they don't deal well with emotions because they rightfully so have to shut those off because then they would be on empathy overload. Facts. I see that I would tolerate this medication better if you could reduce it by 5%. Or you could reduce it to a level of 7.5. Like just recently I asked, I'm getting 50 milligrams of IV Benadryl. The lovely nurses split it up into 2 doses of 25 milligrams with a saline wash, and they push excruciatingly slow. So that I don't feel like I've just beer bonged Benadryl.
Sorry, that's the most depressing college party ever.
I get drunk and I don't get the rest of the fun. It really affects me. I feel sick. I feel woozy. So these lovely nurses push it slow. So I asked, I would feel like I could tolerate this infusion better if I could have a reduction to 40 milligrams. But I asked, can you reduce the Benadryl? No. Well, what if you just reduce it by 5%? Or I don't even know if I'm doing that right. But being very, I believe I would tolerate.
So instead of I feel, instead
No,
of
I feel.
So all of my geek friends out there who are Star Trek, go data. Like, just instead of like the I feel, it's go with doctor speak. I would tolerate this better. I believe I would tolerate, can we try?
Right, X milligrams.
Yeah, so doctor speak.
Be very specific so they can say, oh yes.
Good, yeah, very specific. I like that.
Specificity.
So do you remember anything that if you had known before you'd even signed up for this, that would have helped you? Is there anything you wish you had done differently?
That's a good question.
That's okay.
That's
like a big one.
Because it just feels like it's been a roller coaster. Just too...
Because you've been on a roller coaster emotionally, financially. Your family has you have young kids who are asking a lot of questions, and that it's been very difficult for you to be gone for the 3 days a month.
Right. Well, because a day and a half every 3 weeks when I was flying up to Portland, and now I'm here in the Bay Area. So that has been helpful. Ask, because this program is very unique, and it is unique to rare disease. So with clinical trial, everything's taken care of. I mean, they even now are looking at with clinical trials of having concierge services to make your travel arrangements, to set up.
Oh my God! How anyone want to work on an Stainless clinical trial? Please, POTS clinical trial. I'm in.
So with this being in between worlds, you have to know what you will stand for. Like when I moved to this new to this new university here in the Bay Area, they didn't transfer any of my protocol over of my reduction in steroids, the change in the speed of delivery. So I had to refuse care. I literally said, I refuse care until you can get the doctor to approve protocol that was set forth by the previous university.
God, you're brave. That would scare the hell out of me to refuse care and maybe not.
Right. So my thought was, what's the worst going to happen? I don't think they want to kick me out, because the university had spent 8 months plus trying to get this study at their university. They're not, and the study coordinator, I remember following the nurses around going, this is compassionate care. This isn't, but they didn't understand. They're used to their clinical trials that they have to, almost with a military stance, you have to follow it to the T. And it doesn't say it on this paper. And if it doesn't say it on this paper, then it doesn't go. So I took again another leap of faith, and I don't think they're going to kick me out. But I refuse to be tortured because the steps weren't taken on their end to make sure.
I'm going to make you a t-shirt that says not a lab rat.
Oh,
I'm human, not lab rat.
Right. And that's another thing is come on. I mean, I had the head nurse rush in and be like, I have to give you protocol. I'm like, no, you don't. Call the doctor. You do not have to do protocol.
So there's a difference, and you can ask for a better protocol, but if you're in a clinical trial, this might not be the advice you need to be following.
No, hell no. No, you have to. You sign a contract, and it is set in stone, and you get kicked off the clinical trial. So it's...
All right, clinical trial, and I keep forgetting what to call what you're doing.
Investigational study.
All these terms. I used to be so much smarter before...
Children?
And medication. I mean, Jesus. Children and medication.
Get it.
God help me.
Brain fog. Yeah. So that was a roller coaster. So I don't know if I would have done anything different. It's just...
What was in your, must pack for going to a trial?
Yes.
The base, not even like what would be for clinical or investigational. What was your must pack to bring with you?
Water. Anything that made my stomach feel better. Ginger tea. Salted nuts, in case I knew my blood pressure was going to drop. Caffeine to give me an extra boost. Zofran. That's ondansetron.
I know that one.
Aleve. I could do that. I could, if I were on a clinical trial, you could not take that, but I could take a leave because it helped with, I was having a conversation with my sister-in-law and I said, I have all this chest pressure, but I was afraid to say anything. And she's like, well, is it, you lie down and it's worse and you sit up and it's better? I'm like, yeah. She's like, yeah, taking a leave, I think you'll feel better. I'm like, God, that would have been nice to have that conversation with my clinic doctor but again, they're in a gray world. So they dance a line of suggesting what to give me. So it's, again, when I mentioned this redheaded stepchild, it would be nice for them to say, this, since I know we have the freedom of not being in a clinical trial, this is what I can suggest. But then it takes that doctor having that confidence. I mean, I think it was a lot of confidence that doctor say, salt up, have a salty breakfast, have a salty dinner, so that you're retaining water. Because I would fly, and flying dehydrates you. So if you're flying anywhere for treatment, water, and be diligent about anything that is a diuretic.
Oh my. Yeah, things to think about there. Coffee is a diuretic, everyone.
Or even people who are on meds because they have edema, they're on diuretics for heart complications. And that's especially prominent in our population, is having cardiomyopathy, so they're on diuretics to help with the swelling they get.
Oh boy, yeah, that's for POTS too, yeah.
Right. And then again, I'm on a beta blocker for migraine. I would have told myself, come off that. I've reduced it as much as I can on a daily basis, so that there's times I forget. Like, it would be the night before my infusion. I'm like, oh, dang, I forgot to do the 3-day washout. Okay, so now I know I have an extra cup of coffee and some salted cashews on my way to my infusion, so bolster up my blood pressure. Have an extra cup of coffee sitting there so that I know if I'm low, because usually it's fine until I get the investigational medicine, and then I dip, and I'm like, okay. And the nurses check my blood pressure every time they change the titration. They're fabulous. And I write all this down in the journal, and I journal everything that happens during infusion and post infusion to see, because I've been able to see over the last year and a half, I have a 30-point drop. That's consistent. And how well I am, in the beginning kind of predicates what happens down the line.
So for physical comfort, what would you like if someone's going for the first chemo treatment or their first infusion treatment, or
a weighted blanket? I think those for anxiety. If you feel tired, take a nap. Don't power through it. Get some little those wonderful eye shades, and or a warm blanket. Take a nap. And I also find I will load up on my phone comedies. I need to laugh.
Brilliant, yes.
Or stand up. Or, again, Drunk History or Key and Peele. Oh, my God. They make me laugh out loud by myself. And so I also have a little, a nest I set up. I have a little container where I carry Lifesavers and Ginger Chews and Werther's, and a bag that has tea, honey, cashews, Aleve, Zofran, and then a big water bottle. And then I have a lunch that I pack that I know every time if I eat, a whole grain turkey and Swiss sandwich and some chips and an apple, I know I'm going to do well. And then towards the end, if I have an hour to my departure, glucose. So some apple juice, a protein bar. So, because I drive myself home.
Yeah, I'm just in awe of you being able to, I know that I have a special condition and I can't drive anyway, but anyone who goes through a few hours of having a needle in their arm and just sitting still and then getting in a car and the traffic I know you're going through, because I know exactly where you're going and I know that traffic, and if you don't get out at the perfect time, you are now in for the entire day.
Right.
I
pee before I go to make sure that my bladder's empty.
Right. I mean, that's the other thing, is you're also dealing with other factors as well with the medications, and you're now stuck in a pretty intense drive. I cannot believe you're actually physically capable of driving home after all that.
It's more willpower, I think. I will get home.
Yeah, I've never met anyone whose willpower is as strong as yours. And I was a ballerina. You impress me.
Thank you. It's just a drive. I watched a beautiful, strong, loving woman get torn down to nothing. I miss my mother intensely. She was a good person on this earth, and I will not be brought down like she was. It just can't.
And we're definitely going to do an episode about your mom because I never got to meet her and she sounds amazing. And I really want to know more about like what it was like to caregive, especially a genetic disorder where, I mean, there's a lot.
You're watching it knowing that may be your future and it's ripping your heart out.
Yeah. And we will definitely talk about that because I think I know that you are not the only person who went through that or is going through that. And thank you everyone who writes here, but the big part of this podcast is people feel less alone. So I definitely want to do that because
listen to those caregivers.
Caregivers need so much love, focus, and attention because they don't get nearly enough of it, and they go through a lot. And you went through a whole lot of watching and helping, and now you have this chance. And I know that was one of the big things that you've always talked about is part of your strength and your focus is to make sure that your kids, if they do end up with this, will have a better fighting chance.
Right. And that they see the model that you never, ever give up on yourself. And at their time, and then when you have those low days, my son has got such a tender heart and, he's going through preteen. So his emotions are so big and I just don't let it wash over you. You don't deny it. Don't chide yourself for being weak to them. Just let it wash over you. Have those awful days and then you got to pick up your bags and move on.
There's something about let it wash over you, don't let the undertow.
Yeah, drag you down.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's what works for me. I'm not saying I'm some sort of life coach.
You are some sort of life coach. Jesus. Like one of the best people I can call and go, I'm losing my mind. But I think that there's, sorry, I'm also like writing our show notes while we're going because I'm like, I will never have the energy to listen to the hour and then write my show notes. So I'm writing this while we're going because I really think we're hitting some really important things. I want to put the minute number down so that it's really easy for anyone who's like, I know you wander in your conversations, but there's some real definite information I need.
Here are the pins you need to look at.
Yeah, and how to talk to people in your life about this. I think you give some of the best advice, especially when you're talking about children. And children don't often, they're told a lot of the times to, well, mom's sick, you have to be the strong one.
I've never told my kids that.
Oh, I know you would never. But I do know that that's something that people have told their kids or caregivers for you, or not for you, but like for other people will sometimes go to the children and go, mom is sick. She can't deal with your emotion. You need to be strong for your mom.
You have to tamp down being a child.
Exactly. And that's been like the big thing, like in our house that we've had to really like hit home for the kids over and over and over again, because I won't die from this. So I will get worse progressively for however long I'm here. And like the big thing to my kids is like, I'm not your responsibility.
Right.
You can feel sad about this. You can feel whatever you need to feel about this, except responsible. Like I am not going to let you decide you're my caregiver, and that's just how our family is working. Please, whatever your families are doing, your families.
And we struggled last year. I was flying out every 21 days, and I noticed as the treatments went on, I got home and my daughter would just unleash it on me.
I remember that. Oh,
it was so hard because I was feeling awful from just flying, and I felt like she was kicking me when I was down. It felt like a personal attack, and I'd be like, wait a second, she's 8.
Yeah,
she's struggling to put her mind around this. So I had to be very upfront and give her tactics and give her control too. Like we started putting my treatments on calendar so she knew when it was coming and wasn't surprised by it. So we had a lot of, but I had to sit and have very brutally honest conversations, and then also start recognize that steroids made me different. So in the moment, I also had to be very self-aware, and like if I lashed out, I had to be like, I just overreacted. I'm very sorry. Can I restate that?
Can we just have a quick word for like,
yeah,
I'm sorry is not a bad thing to say as a parent.
You're not a bad parent by apologizing and admitting fault. How can you get them to admit fault if you don't model it?
I've never understood that. Like this idea of like you are somehow this deity as parent,
omnipotent son,
and
demigod.
You are perfection and the paragon. But you want your kids to be able to say, "Oh, I was wrong. I should really do that better next time. They can't do that unless you do that. Like,
Right.
It's just not possible. Again, if you do this differently in your house and it works for you, cheers, mazel tov, blessed be. This is like what's, like the parenting self-discovery.
Right.
You had told me a really important point about the difference between the cost of medication in the United States versus, because you're getting to the end of the trial, is that right?
So my last infusion for this investigative study is February 15th, and I move over to commercial access.
Yeah.
And so this...
What does that mean?
So that means I have to start paying for the drug and the infusion costs and everything that goes with it and run it through my insurance.
Because this actually helped you, is that right?
Yeah, so I've had documented disease regression by more than one specialist.
That's amazing.
That I know, and that's what my brother-in-law and sister-in-law said, that the best you can hope for is stopping the disease in time. It is unheard of to see disease regression. And I caught it very early. I was lucky that I feel like I finagled my way in. That's the best way I can say it, is I got in. And I'm getting better. So now the insurance has to see that. And this medication, because it's not a pill.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think the insurance industry and the FDA has really figured out how to deal with this new, and there's going to be other treatments. There's hereditary blindness, same thing. It's $800,000 a year.
So for you to go to commercial access,
it's $450,000 a year. It's...
Oh, please, everyone, just let that sink in, especially those of you who are in countries that, I know that you guys would have a lot of trouble with socialized medicine. I know that trying to get this kind of treatment access would be insane. Now, we're going to explain very quickly why it would be different in your country, because in the United States, it's right, the United States government is not allowed to negotiate with. Like, the true cost of this medication is not $450,000 a year. So if you go over to another country, so putting this into something that everyone would deal with, you need an MRI.
Mm-hmm.
I was charged $15,000 10 years ago for an MRI. My insurance refused to cover it. That's what I was billed, was $15,000. So I would like to ask those of you in Sweden, Switzerland, the UK, I know it's hard for you guys to get your MRIs. I get that. I know the waiting list is hard, but I'm just asking. And those of you in Australia especially, what do you get charged? What is your insurance, or what does the NHIS get charged for an MRI?
Right.
Because when we're talking about these extreme numbers, that's because that's what these drug companies are charging our insurance, or... So just, that's, when we're talking about $48 an aspirin, that's because that's what the hospital charges. The insurance is $48 for an aspirin. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about these extreme things, and people are like, there's no way we could have universal health care because we'd never be able to afford $450,000. Well, we need to actually find out what the true cost of everything is before we start having that conversation.
And there are, because this is gene silencing approach. So they're at the beginning of a totally new modality of treatment. And so the way it is structured in the U.S. needs to change, because I heard a talk on NPR. It's like paying rent versus paying mortgage.
Oh, that's a good way to phrase it.
So the way that it's structured needs to change. And because there are many other diseases that are looking at gene silencing or immunotherapy that are high tech.
Yeah.
So it has the price structure has to change.
And maybe that is the cost for right now, while it's something that is only in small batches. But if it became something that's available to everyone who has this disorder, there might be ways to change. And we're at this weird horizon point of medication and medicine, and there's so much that's possible right on that line.
Right. So they created through a nonprofit the assistance fund, and I qualified. So they help pay for insurance premiums, they help pay with co-payments, they help pay for specialist co-payments and infusion costs. I can't get anything in writing.
Oh,
so it's been a very nebulous experience so far. And my husband's like, it's going to get covered. I'm like, They don't.
Ish.
Or what the pharmaceutical company does not want is me coming off treatment, and they absolutely need every patient on treatment no matter what. So I have to kind of bank on that. They aren't going to want to see this fail. There's too much invested to see failure.
You would like the reason to be, there's this person who is actually getting a shot at living.
Right.
We would like her to continue living and not be, we've already invested money into this, and we need to see if this actually has a long-term and follows patient through to make sure it works for however long.
Right.
It'd be nice if there was like, I mean, I know I'm dancing through the flowers and singing Kumbaya, but it would be nice if there was ethics along with science. Like if there was like a baseline of compassion for people rather than a profit line.
Right. And,
or at least if compassion and ethics were at the same level as a profit line. Like, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be able to make money. I'm just saying, like, it'd be nice if it was balanced.
Yeah. Yeah. And insulin is a great, indication of that. In this world that I am in, it's a very small community. So everyone knows everyone, and that's been a benefit. I've been able to reach out and make phone calls when I've had stumbling blocks, and those stumbling blocks were cleared. But again, it's knowing who to call when.
Yeah.
When to make that cry for help and not be the one who's crying wolf all the time, of knowing this situation warrants me pulling on the strings and calling the people that I know can make things happen. So that's also been a dance. That the patients have to do. So it's an interesting world for sure.
So my body has now gone beyond the painkillers I was on, and
Should we wrap up?
We are going to get wrapped up. So here's the thing: I have incredible empathy for Kira as I'm looking at the questions I was supposed to ask you and realizing I didn't ask any of them.
Should we just drill
them? Well, no, I'm not doing that to you or me. I'm going to send them to you, and I'm going to put them on the show notes.
Okay.
So that we can get a nice list. So please go to the website, invisiblenotbroken.com, and we're going to have like all of the answers there. And also, if you are like, wow, they're talking a lot, I also will be putting down an estimate of the time period when we talked about those. Again, I'm doing the best I can on a lot of painkillers and 2 dislocated tibias. Yay. So please go over to invisiblenotbroken.com and take a look at these show notes. If you have other questions for Dawn, because I know this is like a really big issue and it's a really important issue, put them in the comments. I read comments. I really do. And by the way, be nice to me because I have like 3 feelings, and a few of you have hurt the last 2. So
no trolling.
Nice. Be nice. Or if you're gonna troll, be really funny about it because I can totally respect funny trolling. I'm all for some good. I raised a teenage boy. I am good with like at least make it funny.
Snark.
Love snark. But please write any questions for Dawn. I will make sure she gets them, and we'll see if we can get them answered for you the best we can. Real quick housekeeping. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. I'm absolutely amazed that we now have an audience in Africa.
What?
And in China.
Worldwide.
And South Korea. And gosh, all you in the UK and Australia and Sweden, Switzerland. Thank you. Wow. Did not know. I'm really jealous, by the way, because these are like all my must travel before I die list. Like, this is bucket list places you guys are listening. So I can't tell you how grateful I am that at least my voice is getting there right now. So
You're
cheers
traveling.
to that. Nicest thing you can do for us, if you like us or if we annoy the hell out of you and you want to annoy someone else, go ahead and send them this podcast. We don't advertise. So if you share us with people who might be looking at like a clinical trial or an investigative trial. I did it. Yay. Send this over to them as a way to like prepare for that. If there are people in your life who just don't seem to understand your condition, go through a look through our past episodes, see if we have that, send them to people in your life who might get a better understanding of that. If we don't have your disorder, please go ahead, go onto our website. I have a future guest section. Fill that out, send it to us. We are always looking for new and fun guests. Thank you so much, and tune in next week, and be kind, be gentle.
Be a badass.
Be a fucking badass.